Okay, good afternoon. My name is Damelis Lopez, and I am here representing the company Roka Furadada. We are a startup based in Barcelona, and we develop innovative ingredients for the cosmetic industry. Our distributor is Kaczmarek Cosmetics, and so you can visit their booth in the 441 here. So thank you very much. So today I want to introduce our best ingredient because it's the most innovative one, Roka Smart UV PvB 360. And I want to let you know first about the customers' behaviors nowadays in the sun care. So in fact, 80% of the population didn't reapply the sunscreen properly, or even they didn't apply correctly the quantity that they need to use. Because of that, we create the technology Roka Smart UV that it's a photoadaptive, long-lasting, and efficient UV protection. Roka Smart UV can be used in sun care, but also can be used in skin care, in hair care, and also in makeup. Roka Smart UV PvB 360 is a precursor of a UVA absorber. So this molecule, once receive the UVB light, it be photoactivated and start to absorb in the UVA spectrum. So it's a dosage-dependent ingredient, and the most radiation it receives, the most protection it gives. Thanks to that performance, we also will show you on that graphics how Roka Smart UV can increase the UV APF in several sunscreen and why it's very important. So in the first graphic, you can see a comparison between a formulation that we did without our ingredient and of sunscreen, of course. And in brown, you can see the behavior of a sunscreen with 2% of Roka Smart UV PvB 360. So as you notice, the first formulation is very stable. However, once we add our ingredient, we are able to increase the UV APF in more than 48%, reaching 85% of additional UV APF protection after 2 hours of exposition. And in the second graphic, we have the most impressive results because we are comparing an SPF 30 benchmark that we bought in the pharmacy with a formulation that we did that contains similar filters in the composition but adding our ingredient. As you could notice, the benchmark starts to lose powder in the UVA protection just after 25 minutes of exposition. And adding our ingredient, even that we are starting the UVA APF in a lower level than the benchmark, we are reaching the same level that they had at the beginning after 1 hour of exposition, but we maintain this protection over the time in more than 6 hours. So thanks to our ingredient, we are offering more security to the customers because even that you know that thanks to the regulation things, you have to claim in your sunscreen that you have to reapply every 2 hours, the reality is that the customers don't do that. In other way, you know that the UVA rays are the main responsibles for the photoaging. They have a cumulative effect in the skin. So because of that, we want to prove also the photoaging prevention of our ingredient and also to give another kind of approach for the current cosmetic industry. Because the current cosmetic industry is more to repair the damage that you already have in your skin, and we want to give a preventive approach, especially for this kind of effect that the UV ray have. Because the sun that you are taking now is the signs that you will see in few years, okay? So the first study that we did is an in vivo test related to the pigmentation protection. So on that case, what we did was to choose 20 volunteers. All of them were of the phototype 3 and 4 that are the most sensitive for the pigmentation. And we measure in all of them the ITA grade. The ITA grade is related to the skin tone. The higher value of ITA grade you have, the lighter skin you have, and the lowest value of ITA grade you have, the darker skin. And all of them apply in half part of the face an SPF 30, and in other part of the face the same formulation, but adding 2% of PvB 360. All of them were exposed at least 2 hours during summertime in Barcelona, and they reapply the sunscreen in every part every 2 hours. And what we notice is that after 21 days of exposition, the part of the face that were just protected with SPF 30 goes darker, and the part of the face that contains our ingredient, but also protect with an SPF 30, maintain the same tone. So thanks to that, we can say that PvB 360 can prevent the sun-induced skin pigmentation in real exposition of sun. After also we did several kind of studies, ex vivo and in vitro, to prove the efficacy for the photoaging prevention with different kind of biomarkers that prove that. So first I will try to explain to you the protocol that we use to measure that. We made a formulation with several concentration of PvB 360 from 0.5 to 3%. After, as I explained to you at the beginning, our ingredient needs to be activated with the sunlight. So because of that, we apply the formulation in PMA plates, and after we irradiate the PMA plates in a sun simulator, and we place the plates inside the cells. And finally, we did the evaluation of the different biomarkers. So the first biomarker that we measure is the oxidative stress. So in the first graphic, you can see how with different concentration, but maintain the time of the pre-activation, we are able to reduce the oxidative stress in 27% compared to the negative control. The negative control where the cells 100% exposed without protection. But if we compare with the positive control, that where the cells 100% cover, in fact, we are able to reduce 100% of the oxidative stress, just with 0.5 of PvB 360. In the second graphic, we maintain the same concentration of the ingredient, but we modify the time of pre-activation. And what we notice on that case is that with just 12 minutes of exposition, we are able to reduce 14% compared to the negative control, but if we compare to the basal state, we are able to reduce in more than 50% the oxidative stress related to the UVA exposition. Also, we made a study in combination with the Professor Mark Birch in the Newcastle University to measure the mitochondrial DNA damage. And what we obtain is using 2% of our ingredient at several quantity or doses of radiation, we are able to reduce the mitochondrial DNA damage from 51% to 59%. Finally, we also did several ex vivo studies in a 3D skin model. On that case, the protocol were very similar to the one that we use for the in vitro ones. The only difference is that instead to expose the plates inside the cells, we expose it inside the 3D skin model. So after 24 hours, we clean the subnatant and we proceed to the whole results. So on that graphic, you could see a histologic cut where we notice that the first picture, it's about the 3D skin model not exposed. So it has an epidermal thinning, it has not sunburned cells inside. After, you could see how the placebo that were without any protection, after the exposition to the UVA rays, reduced a lot the epidermal thinning, but also appears several dots in the violet part that are the sunburned cells. So once we add 1% of PvB 360, the thickness reached the same of the placebo, of the not exposed model, and the sunburned cells reduce in more than 50%. But using 3%, we are even enhance the not exposed appearance of thickness of the epidermis, and also the sunburned cells disappear completely. So this is our amazing results. On that graphic, we also measured the cell's death. So you notice that with just 1% of PvB 360, we are able to reduce the cell's death in 28%. And using the ingredient at 3%, we are able to reduce in 41% the cell death. On that graphic now, you will see that the not exposed model didn't have any oxidized derivative, but in the placebo, the white dots are the dots related to the 8-oxo-DG. That is an oxidative derivative very related to the degradation of the skin. So what we did was to, again, measure the ones that appears in the placebo once the model were irradiated, and after adding 1% of PvB 360, you notice how it reduced more or less in 50%, but increase the quantity of PvB 360, we are able to reduce in more than 75%. Also, we made a measure of this 8-isoprostan that is related to the lipid peroxidation. And you notice how, with 1% of PvB 360, we are able to reduce 19% the lipid peroxidation, but adding 3% in near to 60%. Also, we measure, of course, the MP1 expression, because this enzyme is very related to the degradation of the collagen. And we notice that adding our ingredient at 1% or even at 3%, we are able to reduce, compared to the placebo, 14%. But again, if we compare with the basal state, we are able to reduce in around 50%. And finally, we measure the IL-6 that is related to the inflammation of the skin. And you notice how, adding our ingredient at 3%, we are able to reduce in 34% the presence of this biomarker, so reducing the inflammation compared to the placebo. Finally, you notice here that in Resume, our ingredient using from 1%, it's able to prevent the photoaging, but also, of course, adding more quantity, you will have better results. Also, we want to prove the efficacy of that ingredient in terms of the hair care industry. And so because of that and the mechanism of action of our ingredient, we decided to go with dye hair. So in that case, the protocol that we follow were to use a formulation that contains 2% of PvB 360, and after we apply this oil in several hair locks. And we expose in more than 6 hours these hair locks in the sun simulator, and after we wash the hair locks and we measure the color. And what we notice is that the hair that contains 2% of PvB 360, as you notice in the picture, the speed of the degradation of the color is slow than another oil, sorry, and of course without any treatment. So because of that, we can say that PvB 360 can prevent the degradation of the color. Finally, I will let you know that our ingredient can be added in the oily phase, and it didn't add any color or odor to your formulations. You can use it, again, in sunscreen, but even in anti-aging products or even hair care. And just some examples that you have around the world that shows how our ingredient not just can be used in sunscreen, also can be used for hair care, this example. And in general, our ingredient offers a control-release UVA protection. It's a smart technology. It's a UVA protection battery. It could give photoaging prevention. It prevents the sun-induced skin pigmentation. It can give hair color preservation. It has a versatile integration, and is a high-performance active. So thank you very much for this time, and I hope that you like our ingredient, and you can visit us in the booth 441. Thank you.